Insurance professionals work hard every day to keep people safe, but as technology transforms the industry, how can insurers protect not only their clients, but also shield themselves from ever-changing cyber risks? My name's Elizabeth Blossfield, and I'm the host of the Insuring Cyber Podcast, a monthly look into how the world of cyber and the business of insurance are connected. This episode of the Insuring Cyber Podcast is sponsored by AM Best Information Services. Turn to AM Best for solutions to the complex challenges you face with ratings, research, news, and data analytics to cover the insurance industry. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Insuring Cyber Podcast. I'm so excited to share this episode with you today on a fascinating topic in insurance, the shift from AI assistants that handle day-to-day simple tasks to fully fledged AI actuaries and agents that are planning, decision-making, and executing higher-level tasks in insurance. Our guest today says sometimes these AI employees are fully onboarded through HR as actual employees within an insurance company. Alena Kharkavets is the North American head of claims for WTW in its insurance consulting and technology business. WTW is a global advisory broking and solutions company. And Alena joined me to discuss the evolution of AI, tech, and insurance, particularly in the claims space, some of the challenges that still exist, and where the tech is headed. Check out our conversation. Hi, Alena. It's great to meet you. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks very much for having me over on the podcast, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited to speak with you. I know you have a lot of background and expertise in what we're talking about, and I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation, AI actuaries. It's something that we haven't covered on the podcast yet, so I'm excited to get into it. But before we get to some of the questions, could you just give a brief overview of your background and some of the work that you do?
Absolutely. We are talking actuaries. So I am an actuary. I've been in actuarial work for almost 20 years. And I'm a business actuary who did a lot of pricing and, the traditional analytics, but ended up moving to the business side, spent time in distribution, underwriting, claims. And currently, I lead the claims practice for WTW in North America. And what we do here is really we're helping clients on their analytics journey and their in claims. Everything is about analytics. It's about data points and becoming more sophisticated, embedding it into your day to day. That's there's a lot of momentum there, and that's my focus area.
No, that's great. Well, I'm so happy that you're on the podcast. I love talking to actuaries because you have such a deep knowledge of the insurance industry. So I feel like we can really get into it. And like I said, this is a fascinating topic to me. And I'm curious, I guess, just to start off, what you've seen in terms of the shift from AI assistants, where they're helping with some day-to-day tasks, to the concept of AI actuaries, where they're fully, fledged AI colleagues. Is this sort of where the future of insurance is headed?
Elizabeth, you used a very important word, shift. I think that's exactly the right word to describe what we're seeing. Every single client conversation I'm part of, inevitably AI comes up. And how do we use AI to do things faster, better, lower cost, those sorts of things. And I just finished a string of conferences, actuarial and non-actuarial, and there's just such a buzz about AI. It's everywhere. Just to step back for a moment, in insurance, if we look at the role the insurance plays, right? It's when the homes get burned or the car is dented, insurers are there. Without insurance, people wouldn't be able to get their mortgages, get the new cars, get their business loans. And it's actuaries who make sure there's enough money to pay for all those losses, right? And the way actuaries were going about doing this work for many decades was sort of, you get your data, you see, and then you think, you kind of analyze, and then you take action. And what's interesting with AI right now is that it really tremendously is kind of accelerating the step 1 and step 2 and even step 3. And I'll give you an example. I was chatting with a pricing leader of one of the regional carriers just a couple of weeks ago. And he was sharing an example, I really wanted to build this model in the past, writing the code, configuring it, figuring out the scores. It would have taken me 5-6 months with everything that's going on. But you know what? I was just playing around and I sat down and I spent a day and I'm 95% there. So when you see experimentation like this going on, and when you know that, 70% of the work that actuaries do is really those steps of data collection and analysis, and AI is really, really good at it. Yeah, I think you're right. We're not talking about AI assistants. I think we're talking about AI really fully embedded into the actuarial work, and it is the future of insurance. I think all the business leaders listening to it, that's the key question to ask. How do I accelerate my journey of AI for my business?
Yeah, this is a key question. This is so interesting to me because you can see it with all the technological innovations that have happened in insurance. Now today we think, we used to do all of this stuff on paper. Now we're using computers and it's so much faster. And it's the same with AI. You can see how much more efficiency it's bringing into the space. So it's an exciting place to be. And I think you're right that it's an important question to be asking for all insurance leaders. And I'm curious, kind of talking more near term, where do you see AI actuaries making the biggest impact in insurance right now?
Oh, I'm so excited about this, Elizabeth. There are, two things that actuaries kind of did. There's traditional and non-traditional. So traditional, that's your pricing, that's your reserving, and there will be for sure gains there, no question about it. And we'll talk more about it, I'm sure. But the real sort of big step forward, it's a step change where AI is going to make analytics much more accessible in operations. And when I say operations, what I really mean is, it's your sales, it's your underwriting process, and it is your claims. And if you step back and you just think about it, so pricing and reserving, very big decisions need to be made, and the cost of mistake is quite high if you misprice or, if you don't set the right reserves, big consequences. But that's why actuaries have been doing it for like many, many, many decades. That's the bread and butter. And AI will help us be faster and, build models faster, build better models. But at the end of the day, when we've done a survey, how mature is the market on analytics in pricing? Over 95% of companies have very sophisticated models already. So they'll get better, but analytics, advanced analytics, AI is going to have an impact, but the maturity is already there. But operations, it's really the next frontier. And what I mean by operations, it's really sales, underwriting, claims. Because if you think about what AI agent does, right? We've talked about see, think, do. So AI agent takes the analysis and it's actually able to take an action. And I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but I think many of us had the situation of trying to book a vacation, 9 p.m. And I'm like, okay, what is the itinerary? You're typing into ChatGPT. Can you please give me recommendations? And then 12 o'clock, 20 tabs open, nothing is booked, and you feel frustrated. Okay, what's next? It would be very nice to have this book button there and, and actually for maybe even at some point, even give AI our wallet, have leap of faith and say, can you book it for me? And I think this example sort of highlights where the opportunity is for AI agents, because in pricing and reserving, the cost of a mistake is quite high. If you don't get the reserves right, you might lose confidence of investors. You might not have good results at the company. But if you look at an area like such as claims, it's sort of an untapped potential at the moment. And claims 70% of overall pie of insurance, just to set the stage. So every dollar we collect in premiums, from insurance perspective, 70% goes to claims and managing the claims. In claims, you have hundreds, if not thousands of adjusters, all of whom are making those micro decisions on every single claim. And when you put on top of this that there is very, very little advanced analytics at the moment. So the data is there. There are all these micro decisions being made. A lot of data is being collected. But, we've done a survey in pricing. Over 95% of insurers have advanced analytics already. So it's very mature. But in claims, it's about a third. So only a third of companies have advanced analytics. It's because it was not accessible. It was very, very hard. And so, big part of the pie, 70% is claims, lots of decisions, I think companies would be very comfortable opening up their wallet and saying, on this claim, it's not big value. AI, please make a decision and it will help me with my teams. You don't get tired, AI, and I will be faster with my cycle time, lower costs, and better customer satisfaction. So I think it's sort of the next frontier is really operations. And it's kind of a little bit like an iPhone moment, iPhone arrived and connectivity has arrived, and you had e-commerce all of a sudden, you had this boom in media, social media. And I think that's what we're going to see. Analytics is going to come to operations. Insurance carriers will very much accelerate their journey of being sophisticated and bring what they knew from more traditional pricing techniques and reserving into their sales, underwriting, and claims. Yeah, it's exciting times. We'll be talking about it probably 10 years from now.
Yeah, I'm sure we will be. And hopefully this podcast will still be around and you can come back and talk about it then. But yeah, this is interesting to me because it sounds like, there is a big gap within the claim space. And with that comes an opportunity for insurers to kind of harness this AI even more. And I know that, as you said, you described AI actuaries as systems that go beyond just conversations and can actually plan and execute tasks. So can you give an example of how Willis Towers Watson is exploring the use of AI actuaries in its own modeling?
Absolutely. WTW, we're consulting, but also a technology platform. And we have a product that actually world leading insurers, they use. It's Radar, and it's designed for P&C insurers specifically. And really, it's basically a modeling solution, and for us, there is a very big application of AI and the modern, whether it's Gen AI or even agentic AI in that solution. And really what we are talking about is, in the past, models took a longer time to build. Now it's how do you write the code and debug code and figure out the errors if you need to write code within a very short time frame. Or maybe it writes the code for you for simpler models. How do you figure out the scores and, for your model and make sure your dislocation is kind of, you understand what the model is doing. If someone is getting a 30% increase, simply put, okay, I think you'd want to understand that particular why that's the case, because otherwise you will have a lot of upset agents really, and you need to manage the channel better. So the way we are looking at AI specifically is really how do we accelerate that model development, analysis cycle, deployment cycle, and monitoring? Because when you monitor, again, insurers will start having more and more models. You need to monitor them and manage that real estate. And again, that's where we see an application of Gen AI and in the future agentic AI of can you spot the trends very quickly and tell me what needs to be done? Because this model is really critical for us. But it's all about upgrading our game, evolving our tools, because our clients, they really want the best tools, and AI is part of it.
Yeah, it's a constantly evolving space, and it's important to keep on top of it. That's a good point. And as we've talked about, this is exciting. It's an exciting opportunity in insurance, and it's a really interesting space, but there are still, some challenges and limitations as we learn and as we grow. So what are some of the current challenges with these AI agents or AI actuaries so far, and how do you expect them to sort of evolve in the future?
Data strategy and system integration. And what I mean by this is, if you think about how, you and I learned when we went to school, or, our listeners, how they've learned, we read a lot of books, we had a lot of conversations, maybe with our professors or teachers or our peers. And all that information was deposited into a repository called brain, right? Like one place. But if you look at claims adjusters, I don't know if you've been on this floor, but whether it's claims adjusters or salespeople, they have 3 screens and they have 10 different systems open. And the reason why they need 3 screens and they have 10 systems open is because systems don't integrate, and they go here to track their activities. They go here to enter policy information or customer information. They go here to figure out what is the next best action they should take. And all of this is going to slow us down in how powerful AI can be. So figuring out the right data strategy and figuring out the right system integration so that AI can really be deployed, not only to see and think, but also to take action on those scenarios where you want insurers to take action, that's going to be one challenge that I think we'll need to tackle. And the other one is, and it's sometimes overlooked, but I think it's a really critical one, which is monitoring. If you think about, again, AI, we're going to have an army of AI agents, if you will. We will have a lot of models. And, some people literally, some companies set them up as an employee, in their system. You actually have to literally, like, they're recorded even in an HR system, but it's like, oh, it's kind of a model. You need to think, so HR function, we know in the past, what was the function? Very big in the company. You onboard people and then you performance manage. So with AI, it's going to be the same thing. You need to deploy the models quickly, but once they are deployed, you need to manage that real estate or, that workforce of AI models. And I think it's often overlooked in early days because everyone is very excited. People want to experiment, try new things, and it's so cool, However, if you don't invest right in the infrastructure and the monitoring solutions and think through how you're actually going to do it, it can be really counterproductive and it can really slow you down. It can really make you redo things that you don't want to redo. So I think for me, these are the two things that are probably going to stay with us for a little bit longer than we would like. They're more challenging things, but I think it will get better and better over time.
Yeah, it will as we learn and grow. But this is interesting. I'm glad that you brought up the HR piece of it because I think that's also a fascinating part of the conversation. And it kind of leads into my next question too, because I know that we talk a lot about, automation and having these AI agents handle tasks, but there's also obviously the human element. And so I'm curious how insurers can go about balancing that automation with also, keeping the human in the loop and making sure that there's transparency and accountability.
It's going to be really key. And I'll use a simple example. In the US, many insurers right now are looking at the challenges that exist with the litigation system. And people call it, litigation system abuse because really there are a lot of situations that happen that sort of are not in line with the kind of how insurance was designed or how things were meant to be. And for insurer, typically it plays out in several areas. One of them is, how do I set my reserves? Do I set reserves maybe, a little bit higher, a little bit lower? Are my reserves adequate? And it's a very critical question because if you don't set the reserves right, and you have to then add to your reserves next quarter, your investors will not like it because they'll say, oh, it's kind of hard to explain, and particularly have to do several quarters in a row. But the same issue, the way it plays out in the claims world, if the claim arrives and the adjuster is handling it, you think, okay, how likely is that this claim going to be represented? And depending on the likelihood of this, maybe it will follow this path with a specialized team because they would be able to really move this claim along much faster and achieve the better outcome for the client and for the insurer. And the way, if I think about this tension of automate versus human judgment, these two examples demonstrated because for decisions that are very material, where the cost of a mistake is high, where the risk is big, for sure, you will need to have much more human judgment. It's kind of, my example of the wallet in the past. I'm okay if my AI orders my coffee at 11 o'clock because I drink my matcha at that time, and I just go and pick it up. But maybe I'm not quite ready yet to book my entire vacation without checking it. It's kind of this materiality difference. And I think, for reserves, for example, there will be much more judgment involved and much more human involvement because it's more complex. And can the data really capture it perfectly in the next 5-10 years? I think, until it's proven, people will be very, very involved. But in an example of claims, your cost of mistake, again, is much lower. And you have many, 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 many claims. That's where there will be much more automation. So insurers will really have to build this framework for themselves and look at what are all the use cases. we're making, and what are the right use cases also is an important question, because there are a lot of enthusiasts, who are, I'm on this journey, all the cases, but you need to be very careful with the ROI to make sure that you're not just really spinning wheels and not producing value for the company. But having this framework of what's material, where I'm comfortable if there is a mistake, and where I'm not comfortable, and navigating it, and increasing the trust, by making the systems more mature. I think that's how insurers need to tackle and look at this whole space of, do I automate, or do I make a kind of do I get very, very involved?
Yeah. And I think that's great advice too, because I can imagine it's different as the tech tools evolve, but also it's different for each company. So they have to look at their business model and what makes the most sense for them. So I think that's great advice. And this has been a fascinating conversation. I've learned so much from you, and I think our listeners will too. Do you have any parting words or any sort of last pieces of advice for insurers as we look ahead to how AI can sort of augment their business operations?
Jump on the bandwagon, but be careful and be thoughtful. Invest time in the roadmap. Invest time in figuring out what is that the right use case. AI more advanced AI has arrived, right? I've done a poll recently, and just out of curiosity, and asked, actuaries. So where do you see actuaries in the next 5-10 years? And 85% of people said, and I had options, is it going to be a strategist? Is it going to be the supervisor for models? Is it going to be status as is? Or are we going to be fully automated? And really, 85% of people said, okay, actuary is going to be maybe a strategist, or maybe it's going to be a really supervisor for models. So people acknowledge there's going to be a change. And then, of course, you have some people said, fully automated, and some, there's going to be very little change. But I think it's no question AI is here, but the message is really spend time on figuring out the framework before you start going after different use cases. And the framework needs to include your data and system integration we've talked about, needs to include how you're going to monitor and how you're going to realize ROI as part of it. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's great parting advice for insurers as well, because it's an investment of your time on the front end, kind of learning about the models and where they best fit, but it will save you time and efficiency in the long run. So I think that's great advice to leave everyone with. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I really learned a lot and enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's all for this episode today. Thanks to Alena for joining me, and to everyone who tuned in. You can check out all of our previous episodes at insurancejournal.tv or wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned for another episode next